Well, I was thinking, oh, I got to do this. I really got to do this, but I got to
Mhm.
do these other things first.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, this is what I should have been doing first. I should have been doing this first before I even created the product.
Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Rock Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Scott Boker, a serial entrepreneur on a mission to help you. This show is designed to teach you, to inspire you, to motivate you to take massive action and build a future-proof business. So, whether you're just starting out or taking your existing business to the next level, this is your home. Now, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's rock your brand. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. This is episode 966, and I am fired up today because, well, I'm going to be sharing with you part 2 of a 3-part case study that I did with Dawn LaFontaine. And actually, this is going to be the 4th time that I'm going to be talking about her on the podcast, because the first time that I had her on the podcast, we went over her business. We went over a content strategy, and I had no idea if she was going to take that advice, but she did. And then she wrote me a review, and I didn't know it was her at first. And actually, let me just read the review to you again, just in case you missed it. Let me go ahead and pull that up. And it says, Scott is inspiring, 5 stars. About a year ago, I was getting 30 organic visits to my website a day. Scott really encouraged me to start writing. I committed to him and myself to write 1 long form blog post a week for a year. I'm now getting 1,500 to 1,600 visits to my website each day. I know I committed to doing it for just 1 year, but I have no intention on stopping now. And I can see why. Well, I read that. I then posted it on my social media, and then Dawn said, Scott, that was me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Dawn, why didn't you email me? This is exciting. And so then I did a recap on 9:54, I believe. Let me pull up my notes here. Yeah, 9:54. So if you want to listen to that recap, that one there, I titled The Strategy to 1,500 Website Visitors Per Day Using Written Content. And that's episode 954. And again, I'll link everything up in the show notes. And oh, by the way, if you want to do what Dawn did and leave me a review on the podcast, that would be awesome. I always love hearing how the podcast has made an impact on your life, your business, and it can be the smallest win. It doesn't have to be something as big as this. It can be something smaller. Just maybe it's finally got you to get your website up and running. Whatever it is, let me know. I would love to see that, and I would love for you to do that on iTunes, and of course, that helps the podcast reach more people. So that'd be awesome. All right, so here's what we're going to do, though. All right. Part 1 has already been published. That's 954. All right. Now today, this is 966. This is part 2. And this here, we're going to actually talk to Dawn, and she is going to walk us through exactly what she has done to get that type of traffic. And you're going to also learn that she did everything right. And I'm using air quotes if you can't see me. She did everything right, but didn't even know that she was doing it right. So I kind of drilled into her content layout, her SEO, her backlinking, which, by the way, the reason why I'm turning this into part 3 is because we go into this backlinking strategy that she's doing, which, again, she didn't even realize that she was doing it. But this is something that is huge. And I think I'm even going to probably implement something inside of our brands to do this on a regular basis. And it's an ethical way of getting backlinks, but it's a natural way of getting them. And it's just something that a lot of people are not utilizing, including myself, but I really drilled into that and I wanted to dig deeper into that. And that's what we did. And she kind of laid out the whole strategy. That's going to be coming up in part 3. All right. So look for that one as part of this. We also kind of get into a little bit of a coaching call once again, and I started to give her some more advice. One of them is using Pinterest in a different way than she's using it now. And then the other thing is email and email promotions, which she is not really doing. And I go through and give her some ideas and some things that she can deploy immediately. And we're going to go ahead and do an update on that in the future to see how well she's done with the Pinterest and with email, not just the list building, because she's doing that, but the promotion side of it. So I'm going to stop talking here because I want you to listen to this part of this case study, because she breaks down exactly to a T on how she's creating the content and also how she is using SEO but doesn't even realize it, but I break it down for you, and then how you can replicate this. But the one thing you're going to realize is Dawn has committed to writing at least one piece of content per week, and that, my friends, is one of the main reasons why it's working, because she's doing it consistently. All right, guys, so I'm going to stop talking so you can listen to this interview that I did with Dawn. You're going to learn all about how she's gotten there. And then from there, make sure that you listen to part 3 when it's published. And if you're listening to this after the fact, it might already be published, but you're going to want to listen to that one because we go into a really cool strategy for getting backlinks to your website naturally, and then also some Pinterest stuff and some email list building stuff and email marketing stuff. All right, so guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, Dawn, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a little while and you have some updates for me. And I'm just really glad that you decided to come back on and agreed to come back on because we got some cool stuff to share. How you doing?
Very good. And thank you for having me on a second time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you and I were doing a little bit of catching up before we hit record. And I said, you know what, we got to hit record here because we're going to start giving away all the goodies. So kind of let's get people caught up a little bit. The last time you were on, do you remember when you were on? I forget if it was like over a year ago, right?
It was right around the 5-minute pitch time, whenever that was.
Okay.
Before that though.
Okay. So it's been a little while. And so you came on and when you started your business, you really started it around a product, right? You developed a product and you're like, this is a product for cat owners. And I just want to get more attention for my product. And that's normal, right? Like we want to get more traffic for our product. And I think when you came on, we started going down the road of your niche, which is in the cat niche. And it was like content, like people are searching for content. It doesn't mean it's got to be like, the best cat, climbing tree or any of that stuff. It was more of like the questions people are asking.
Well, that's really true, because I actually thought when I made like a really cool product, you make something really cool and people will find you and then they'll come and buy it. But that is really, really not how it happens. So,
yeah.
And then the other choice is to pay to get people to come and find your product.
Yeah.
And, when you're first starting out and you're bootstrapping, that's not really an option either. So,
yeah. So, okay, if people want to listen, I'll go ahead and link it up in the show notes and they can listen to that episode, which I think you should listen to that episode because it's really good just how you got to where you are at that moment. But then now we're kind of doing it again, but now we have some traffic to talk about, which is pretty cool. So kind of take us through that. You got done with, the time that you were on the podcast. I had given you some advice loosely. I was like, if I was you, I would do this. And then we might've had a couple of emails that went back and forth. Kind of walk me through what was it like after you got off and kind of what were you thinking as far as what to do next?
Well, I was thinking, I got to do this. I really got to do this, but I got to do these other things first.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, this is what I should have been doing first. I should have been doing this first before I even created the product. And now that I see the power of it. So, I decided, I'm going to follow your advice. I'll get to it. I got to do these other things. Then I'll get to it. And actually, you and I had an email conversation. I was actually after the publishing of your book, and I said, I just got started. And I wrote some, shorter blog posts. And but then you sent me a note back, and you said, do me a favor, do one a week.
Yeah. And
commit to it. Do it for a year, and then come back and tell me where you are. So I said, all right, you're telling me do it once a week. I'm going to do it once a week. So that's, right. That's where we are now.
Yeah. Okay. So because a lot of people will get hung up on a few different areas, but so where do you start with content? Like, where do you start with where you closing your eyes and going like, I think I'm going to talk about that. Like, where did you come up with some topics that you were going to start talking about?
Well, first of all, I'm a naturally curious person and I love animals. I've always had animals. So, I really started with my own curiosity. I said, well, what do I want to know? And if it's something that I want to know, there's a chance that somebody else wants to know it too. And I was actually just, not really sure it was going to work, to be honest. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to put effort into it, it might be it might as well be something that I'm getting something out of. So why don't I start researching topics that interest me, topics that I want answers to? And as it turns out, I want answers to it, but apparently so do other people. So, so that's where I started with my topic ideas.
So you didn't start with a keyword, like looking at the numbers and the search and the competition and all of that stuff. You just kind of went after stuff that was on your
Right.
mind.
I actually just started researching things that I was curious about, but I can say that I've slightly, moved in that direction towards, 1 year in here. I'll give you an
Mhm.
example of something that I did with my blog post that I posted this week. My daughter lives with a roommate who has a cat, and she's like, "Mom, the cat's kind of weird. You pet the cat, and she seems to be enjoying it, and all of a sudden she turns around and takes a bite out of my hand. What is that?"
Mm,
Well, I said, "I don't know. Let me find out." And
mm.
so, but I didn't know what it was. What is that behavior called? Some
Yeah.
behaviors actually have a name. And so I said, "Well, is it play biting? Is it whatever?" And so I actually used Uber Suggest and I typed in, "Why does my cat play bite me?" And it gets 0 search results.
Mm.
So I went back to the Google search bar and I started typing, "Why does my cat bite? Why does my cat bite after I pet it?" And I let it fill in
Sure.
the answers for me.
Yeah.
And then I
Auto
went
suggest.
back to Uber Suggest and I said, "Let me try this one. Why does my cat bite me gently?" That gets 1,900 searches a month. So I don't
Okay.
normally do that, but because
Yeah.
I didn't know what the behavior was called, I
Yeah.
used the tools that were available to me to find out what other people were calling it. But
Right.
typically I just say, "Why do cats have whiskers?" And then
Mm.
go look it up and write something about it.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's great. I love hearing that though, because a lot of people get hung up on the numbers. We just finished up a 7-day content creation challenge. And one of the things that people kept asking was like, how do I like what's the numbers that makes it a good article to write it? Like I look at the search volume, like what's the minimum search? What kind of competition am I looking at? Uber suggests, does it have to be green? Does it have to be orange? Does it have to like we get it all caught up into it's gotta be the right metrics or I can't write this. And I'm with you. There's 2 sites that we started about a year and a half ago. And the very first thing that we did, we just went to Google and just started typing in questions and letting it fill in. And I'm like, if it's coming up like the top suggested search, there's people searching for it.
Right.
And like you said, that you're in the cat market, there are people probably going to look for, well, the one that I saw that you had wrote was either can you bathe your cat?
Right.
Like something
Right.
like that. It's a common question. People want to know that because you bathe your dog, but do you bathe a cat? Do you dry bathe the bath or a cat? Like, what do you do? And that one there gets some good search for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And, but that's a common question that your audience would probably want to know. Not everyone, but someone. And if they come there, they're probably going to want something for their cat to play with or play in, right? So that leads over the right person. So I love it that you didn't start by looking at tools. I think because it doesn't hold you back. So when did you start? Okay, so you start publishing, you committed to once a week. Was there a day that you committed to, or was it just like, I'm going to definitely do one a week, or was there some type of like calendar for you to follow?
Well, I think we actually conversed by email in December. So I said, "New Year's coming up. It's a whole new year. I'm going to start this for the new year." So I literally started January 1st, whatever. I write on Tuesdays. So whatever the
Okay.
first Tuesday in January was, that's when I started writing.
Okay, good. So, and then you kind of stick to that. So
And it's on my
that's
calendar. It's like religion every Tuesday.
okay. Now, do you have like topics that you've already kind of put into a little bucket, or do you kind of like that day sit down and go, oh, I wonder what I'm going to write about today?
Well, I do actually have a list of blog ideas it's more when I'm doing research on some other topic that I see something, I'm like, "Oh, that would be interesting to learn about."
Mm,
And so I do keep a list, but honestly, I'm inspired every single week. There's something I want to know.
mhm.
And so I already know by Tuesday morning what it's going to be that I want to write about. But if I'm ever stuck, I know I've got this list too.
Okay. And I think this year would be phase 2 advice for you
Okay.
is now that you're starting to get some data, right? You're starting to be able to look at your site, and you can do this by looking at your Google Analytics, but also in Uber Suggest, you can kind of see what are some keywords that you're ranking for now that you didn't really plan on, right? And if you kind of built stuff around that now, that's going to even give you, because now you have an edge. You have a site that has some type of authority. It's starting to get ranked, right, for all of these other keywords. So now you can go after some more competitive keywords, right? Even though I don't want you to get hung up on the numbers, but there are things now that you can look at and go, you know what? I can be a little bit more strategic about this. Maybe I'm going to do a group or a cluster of these that are all going to relate to each other, kind of like a content cluster. And then that way someone stays on your site longer, you're leading them, to different areas on your website. So at this point, you could get a little bit more strategic, but I still like it that you're kind of just freely doing it. Like you're like, if I'm inspired by this, I'm going to write it.
Mhm.
But I do think there's a time that you could get a little strategic and be like, okay, 30, 40,000, visitors a month is great, but 120,000 would be better. Right. So we can kind of be a little bit more strategic at this point than just, kind of winging it, I guess. But again, I would never say not to wing it because what you're doing is working. But you can get a little bit more strategic at this point. You know what I'm saying?
So you would say then pick one topic and explore it more deeply. Excuse me.
Yeah, I would try to go in and try to fill in more of things I'm trying to think of an example for you. Um, I mean, you could go down the road, the route of something like this. Can cats eat apples? Can cats eat celery?
Mhm.
Can cats eat blank? Right. And as you go down that, you have all of these, you could group them all into one. What can cats eat? And then you can have all these mini little posts that are still 1,200, 1,500 words. And then those would be independent. I call them your breadcrumbs that would also lead back. And then once they are on the site, now you can interlink to the main article or back and forth.
Right, right.
So it's a way to go a little bit deeper on it. Now, not all topics are going to do that. So you know what I mean? Like, I think, and I think you also did something really good is you were exploring, I think, why or can cats eat cardboard, something like
Right.
that. That was brilliant because, and I don't know if you did this intentionally, but because you sell cardboard boxes where cats play in, well, then they want to know my cat's playing in a box. You sell boxes, yours are nicer, yours are pet friendly. So was that intentional?
It was because I felt like I wasn't ranking for cardboard boxes for cats. So I
Mm,
wanted to at least somehow get those words in somewhere. And also
yeah.
because I wanted to be more of an expert on my own product. And I wanted to know really why do they? Why do they chew on it? Why do they shred it? Why do they eat it?
Mm,
So that I could speak to that.
okay. And so let's go through your writing process, if you will. And I know for you it might be a little bit easier. You're you have a writing background in a sense. Um, what is your how do you get started with a blank screen, like generally? Like what is your steps for writing?
I take notes first. And that actually is the biggest part of the whole thing. That's the thing that takes the most effort because there are actually a lot of cat sites out there, a lot of cat sites that have been around a really, really long time. But
Mhm.
honestly, I don't think any of them do. And I don't mean to sound this, I don't mean this to not sound humble or like I'm bragging, but
Yeah.
they don't do a very good job
Mhm.
of covering the topics. So that's why I think that there's always opportunity because you can always do it better than somebody.
Sure.
And they
I
tend
agree.
to, cover the topic, but I find that sometimes they don't have any support for why did they make a certain contention?
Mhm.
Is there science behind that? How can you prove that? Does it just seem like cats do that for that reason? For example, I wrote an article about why are cats scared of cucumbers? And everybody writes that cats are scared of cucumbers because they look like snakes.
Mm,
Well, snakes are prey animals for cats.
mm.
So if it was a snake, they'd probably want to go kill it, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
be afraid of it.
Right. Right.
And so there's actual science around some of these topics. So the first thing I do is take copious notes on what other people have said. Then I
Mm,
go back and I check them. Are these factual? Do more than one reputable site cover this topic in this way and make the same contention? Is there science to support it? And
mm,
if not, I'm not going to include that bit. Is there another question that it leads to, a related question?
mm,
Can I go down deeper in that? Well, why, why are cats, why do they bite you? Well, is it because they're not social? Well, is it true? Is it cats, people think cats are independent. Does that mean they're not social? Well, let me look into that. I'm not
mm.
going to make a contention unless I have support. So the note-taking aspect of it, I end up maybe with 15 pages of notes for a post that's going to be, 2,000 words or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I go back and organize my notes so that related ideas are together in my notes. But the
Yeah.
note-taking is really, really the longest part of the whole process.
Yeah, because you're getting all your data, right? And I explained this the other day. I was like, you have to imagine you're doing like a paper for school, right?
Exactly.
Right. You're doing
Exactly.
all your research, you're getting all your notes, and then you're going to organize them, right? And you're going to then summarize it in a sense
And
versus it
and
being all the nitty gritty.
and more importantly, your teacher's going to read your report and she's going to write a little note. Well, how do you know this? Well, why did you say that? And
Right.
I'm reading this myself, like as if I want to know the answer to something. Well, I'm
Mm,
reading it critically too. I'm saying to myself, well, that doesn't make sense. Or how do you know, how do you know
mm,
that's really true? And
mm,
why are you saying that? So I
mm,
answer my own questions for myself, even. So
mm.
I want to know the topic inside and out and better than anyone else. And I want to convey that to my readers, which is why I just go deeper than some of the other sites that are out there.
Yeah, no, I love that. I always tell people too, there's a little shortcut there, a little hack, if you will, that if you put in your search in Google, Google's going to tell you what are the
Yeah.
questions that people are asking that's
I do that
related to
too.
that question.
I actually do that too, and I make sure that I answer their questions too. So
Yeah,
maybe like, oh, well, do male cats do that more than female cats? Oh, I didn't even think that that might be the thing. And so
exactly.
I write down actually with the suggested questions that come up right beneath
Yep.
the little snippet or whatever.
Yep.
I write those questions down in the bottom of my notes, and I make sure that I've answered all of those. And I try and answer those with the same language that was used in the question, so that somebody
Uh,
looking up that
yep.
question, maybe my post will show for them.
Yeah, and that's very smart. And that's also why you will most likely rank for those, we call them the H2, right? It's like the
Yes.
heading two. It's your subtopics. You will, and again, it's important that if that question sounds, because sometimes it won't sound natural, but that one, if it sounds natural, it's smart to include that as Google is saying that's the related, because then when they're searching for that, you could come up for that in that article without even it being your main title, which is your
Exactly.
H1, right?
Mhm.
That's smart. So did you did you do that intentionally, or did you do that just because that felt like you needed to do it because you needed to make the article, more concise?
Well, I started out saying to myself, that I want to answer the question, whatever question
Yeah.
I've posed, I wanted to answer it thoroughly,
Mhm.
completely, better
Yeah.
than anyone else has ever done it. And one of the ways to do that is to find out what are the other thoughts around this topic. And I did, turn to the internet and turn to, the millions of people that are out there. What are
Mhm.
they thinking of? Maybe I just didn't think of it, which is,
Yeah.
often the case. I have my own personal biases when I'm researching something, and I wanted to make sure that I answered all the questions around it.
Right.
Eventually, when I started to see, when I used private browsing to see what I was showing up for, I started to realize that I am showing up for some of these, and maybe I should be more intentional about it. And that's
Mm,
when I started to use those as my subheaders, so that
mm.
let Google know that I'm going to answer that question, and maybe they'll show it to people.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So, okay, so you get your piece of content created, you're going to publish it. Let's talk SEO for a minute here, because that's another scary word for a lot of people. When you were first publishing, how much did you kind of look at SEO and like making sure that everything was like perfect?
Not at all, and I can
I
honestly
love
say
it.
that I
I
can.
was so glad you were going to say that.
I really don't know enough about it even. I mean, I don't know who knows enough about it to. I
Yeah,
don't, but
yeah.
I mean, I have a writing background, so I know how to use a variety of language. So I know that when I put in, why are cats scared of cucumbers, I also put in why are cats afraid of cucumbers, and I know to use a variety of language so that it's a trigger like that,
Mm,
that it will show for some of these things. But
mhm.
I do not intentionally do any SEO. I feel like I want to really, really just do a really, really good job, cover the topic better than anyone else has ever covered it, be as thorough as possible. And maybe somebody who's actually looking for that information will find me and stay longer on my blog post for that reason. But I don't intentionally do SEO. Maybe you can tell me what I should do.
I, you know what? Like right now, I'm like, Dawn, I'm not gonna slow you down. Like you just do what you're doing, because it's working. And I think the reason why it's working is because number one, you write with good structure, most likely, right? And what I mean by that is you naturally create it almost as if it was like chapters and sections. And really that's all that the main SEO is looking for, search engine optimization. Like when we're talking like H1, H2, H3, it's kind of like your main title of your essay, and then your sub is your H2, and then H3 would be underneath the sub, right? And so you're naturally doing that anyway, and Google sees that. So wouldn't put that into a tool like Yoast, and Yoast would say, oh, you don't have any H2s, or your H2s aren't right, or whatever. You're doing it naturally without even knowing that you're doing it. So that's like a big one, is just good site structure or good article content structure. So I mean, you already had that because you were just writing with good structure. The other thing is like, if you have images, right? So your images is another important part, not just because, well, there's a couple different reasons, but images keep people engaged, right? People don't just want to look at a whole bunch of text. So it's like, if we can make it like a magazine, right? We want to see pictures, we want to see content, we want to see it in good format. But the other thing is, and I don't know if you're doing this, so if you're not, then we want to start doing this, is your images want to be named keywords.
Yes, I am doing that.
Okay, good.
So I get my photos from, like, Deposit Photos or one of those
Sure.
places.
Mm-hmm.
And the photos look like they represent what I'm talking about. For example, why does my cat yowl or whatever? So I had a lot of open mouth cat pictures, but
Right.
a cat could be yawning in the picture,
Right.
or they
Right,
could be
right.
biting. But I put in my alt text or my alt description of the photo, cat yowling, or black and white fluffy cat yowling, or something like that, so that the term was coming up over and over again in the picture, and I was describing the picture that way.
Yep, exactly. And that's exactly what you want to do. And I see so many people not doing that. What they do is they'll download that picture and they'll just upload it, and it'll say like iStock.1280 by 720, right? Image one. And so to me, it's like, you're missing out on, number one, telling Google more about what the article's about, right? And then number two is, you will come up in Google Images search. So now if people are searching for cat yowling and they're writing a blog post about it, they're going to use your image maybe, but they're going to just, not even save the image as, they're going to save image location. And then it's going to basically pull it from your site, but it's actually creating a backlink to your site without you even knowing it.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. So that's why it is a good idea to do that for those reasons. So yes. So again, you did it because you felt it was the right thing to do, and it was. But again, if you took an SEO course, that would be one thing that they would want you to do. Interlinking. So if you're linking from one article to another article inside of your site to keep people, number one, most people are saying like, I'm doing it because that's what Google wants to see. You're doing it because you want to make sure that your reader is getting all of the information, and you're making it easy for them to receive that information.
Well, exactly. So I recently wrote a blog post on the Siberian cat breed, which is known for being more or less hypoallergenic. But I had another blog post called, I think it was entitled something like, is there such a thing as a hypoallergenic cat? And in that initial blog post, I went into all the details about what allergy is, what does hypoallergenic really mean. But I didn't want to go into all that detail in the Siberian cat article. There's a little blurb in there, in a little section of it, about our Siberian cats hypoallergenic, but I referred back to that one because it has more detail on the whole topic of allergy in cats.
Yeah, exactly. And again, so you created interlinks, which Google loves, but it also keeps your visitor on your site longer, right? So if someone's on your site, they're reading the article, and then they link over to another article that gives them a little bit more information, then it links them over to another article. They're on your site longer, which again gives you a better relationship with Google, because Google's like, oh, this person's landing from a search on this site and they're staying there for 4 or 5 minutes. They must have good content. They're not bouncing. So that's automatically happening. So that's great. You're linking out to external sites, which I'm pretty sure you're doing, because if you're like, well, this research came from Harvard, blah, 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 you're linking over to that external site. Google likes that, because now you're referencing other authoritative sites, because you're like, you should know this, and I'm giving them credit. So again, another, little mark for you from Google. So I'm sure you're doing that.
I did, because I'm not qualified to say, a cat's temperature is supposed to be, 98 degrees or whatever it is. I don't want to state it. I want to say that I'm letting you know what it is, but the facts come from here. So I wanted to give also authority to what I'm putting in there. And also because sometimes facts actually conflict, even between two. The temperature one is a perfect example. You can go to 2 veterinary sites and they'll tell you the normal temperature for a cat is 2 different things. So I don't want to just make a declarative statement without saying where I got my information.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Again, so I just want people to be listening to this and just understand that what you've done is you've just said, I'm going to create the best piece of content in my niche that's going to serve this person that needs it. I'm writing about stuff that I would be interested in or curious about. And I'm just following the basic writing rules. I'm getting good images. So this way here, it's more engaging. And I'm interlinking to articles that could then give them more information about a topic. And then I'm reaching out or linking out to authoritative sites because I want to reference where I'm getting my data. Like, it's literally like, if that's all that you do, you don't have to do an SEO course. You don't have to do like any of this other stuff. You just got to follow like that is like, that's like 101, right? If you do that, you've already proven it. Like, you've done that. And that's, you know, the results are what the results are. The other thing is because your site does have this great information, you're going to attract really good backlinks eventually. You don't have to go out and get like, so have you done any backlinking outreach or anything like that, Dawn?
Well, the only thing that I do is I actively seek backlinks, but through press mentions. So I don't necessarily seek backlinks for my my material. I don't know that I am getting backlinks for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you can see that if you went into Uber Suggest, you could see your backlinks, by the way. So you could see that. And so, okay, I would not say for you to actively go, I wouldn't say for anyone to actively go out and try to build backlinks, because that can get you in trouble. Because number one, what you're doing, you're getting PR, you're getting press, right? That's fine. And those sites usually have a high authority. So that way you're getting a more powerful backlink. That's naturally happening, which is awesome. But you're doing it because you want to get traffic. In your mind, I think, is like, I want to go to that site because they have some traffic and I want to put something on there. It also gives me more credibility because now I've been featured on here. But you're also getting a nice, powerful backlink from that, because when they have your link going to your site, immediately it gives you that backlink, which is really, really cool. So I just love it that you're doing all of this without thinking about it. Really, you really aren't. You know what I mean? That's just, it's natural, which it should be for anyone. And so how often are you trying to get featured on any of these sites?
Well, I actually do the Harrow thing. I do it, you know, I check it 3 times a day.
Okay.
I mean, I'll go a whole week without responding to any of them. Sometimes I'll go and respond to 3 in a day. But I don't know if you checked out on my website, my In the Muse page, and you can see how successful I've been at that. I think I'm probably above average successful in that area. But again, it's because I'm able to leverage my writing skills, you know, to submitting pitches. So.
Mm. And so let's talk about that for a second. So what is that type of strategy? Like, how would someone else, and not just in the cat market, but how would someone else, you know, be able to guest post or, you know, be featured and talked about? Like, what are you doing to get that?
Well, actually, it's funny because I just spoke to Steve Chu about this yesterday. But
Oh, nice.
there's actually 2 ways that I do it: proactive and reactive. So the proactive way of getting press is to reach out and ask to be included in something. And one of the most successful things that I did last year, and I don't do this that often because there aren't that many opportunities to be proactive, but I was actually in the Sunday Boston Globe magazine with my product. They
Okay.
did a Made in New England. I live in Boston, or the Boston area. They did a Made in New England product Christmas time gift guide, and I got into the gift guide. Now, I
Nice.
will mention that I've tried to get into the gift guide for 3 straight years, and I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
even get so much as a response. But this past December, I did get in. I got on the front page, the first page of the magazine. I got hundreds of sales in 1 day. So that
Oh,
doesn't happen
wow.
very often. The other way
Wow.
that I do it is by responding to the Help a Reporter Out site. I'm sure you've probably talked to your class about that, and to your listeners and students. And I just respond to 2 categories of queries. One would be business queries. So I was in, you know, mompreneurs on LegalZoom. I was in
Mhm.
entrepreneurs over 50. I was in PayPal about social media marketing strategies. And then I also do pet related answers. So I was actually in Reader's Digest twice about cat related things, Pop Sugar a few times, NBC News, US News and World Report. And so I just respond to those queries as they come in, and if I feel that I meet their qualifications to respond.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
I started the proactive because I wasn't really familiar with Harrow at the very beginning, but I knew about newspapers, and I actually started the proactive, the reaching out actively to magazines, literally the day that I opened my virtual website doors. So that was the very first thing that I did, and only because I know how to do it. So it's something that came easy to me, whereas nothing else about e-commerce comes easy at all. So I did have some success almost immediately with that. But when I found out about Harrow, and that's probably been a year or two now, probably closer to 2 years, I'm very casual about it. I check it every day, and I just respond when I want to respond.
All right. Well, there you have it. I had to cut this there because there was a lot to absorb there, right? There was a lot there. That was a training all in itself, to be quite honest with you. A whole training on content creation. You know, we did a 7-day content creation challenge. And if you're interested in checking that out or attending that, depending on when you're listening to this, you can still go through that training. All right. We're creating that to be there for anyone that wants to go through it at their own pace, but it is a 7-day content creation challenge. And so many people created their content going through that challenge. If you're interested, head on over to launchyourcontent.com and you can get registered there. All right. So again, I'm breaking it right there, cutting it right there, because I do not want to overwhelm you. In the next part of this, which will be the following week from now, so depending on when you're listening to this, all right, you're going to get part 3. And that is where she reveals step by step how she is doing this outreach, how she is getting featured on these other websites so she can get a backlink to her website and also add some authority to her brand. And then the other thing that we talk about is her Pinterest and also what she can do to really leverage the Pinterest traffic that she's not yet leveraging. I think she could probably double her traffic just through Pinterest and the things that we discussed here. And then the last thing is her email. She's not yet promoting to her list as much as she should be. And I kind of give her a good old fashioned, not kick in the butt, but I said, hey, Dawn, we got to do this. And she was still a little hesitant, but we're going to see how it goes. And I'm going to be constantly leaning on her to do this because I think it'll really help her business. And I think people want it. All right. So that's coming up in part 3. This episode is 966. So if you want the show notes, the links, everything that we talk about, if you're listening to this, you'll get the video as well. You can head on over to brandcreators.com/966. All right, guys. So that's it. That's going to wrap it up. As always, remember, I'm here for you. I believe in you and I am rooting for you, but you have to, come on, say it with me, say it loud, say it proud, take action. Have an awesome, amazing day. And I'll see you right back here on the next episode. Now let's rock your brand.